Right, back part two of my interview with Paul Grant, funding expert. I'm sure you call, is that what people usually call you, funding expert?
Like, you call me lots of names, but that's one of them, yeah.
Well, you were talking a little bit about yourself, your background, entrepreneurial background, and then you became really interested in helping other people bring their business ideas to the world, at contributing. And you were explaining a little bit about how the funding world works. You suddenly began, started to meet these angel investors, people who professionally, and some not so professionally, are looking for business deals and supporting and helping other entrepreneurs. And so tell us a little bit about how do the work that you do now and deciding to, after having this idea to kind of help people to really turn that, if you like, into a business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, while I was actually working with the Angel Network, first of all, I worked with the Angel Network part-time to start with, just a bit of time here and there, and then as it turned out, the person that was running the Angel Network, they actually moved on to start their own Angel Network, which left a big gap, and I was asked to basically take over the Angel Network. So I ended up working quite substantially more than I originally intended, but I actually found it quite fascinating. All the different various types of angels, but and I saw hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs, so I was exposed to loads of different types of entrepreneurial characters and almost every different type of business you can even imagine. So it wasn't. There's
lots of them out there, which is they're making lots of noise. They're very excited, clearly about what their business ideas.
But anyway, so I was meeting lots of people. I was meeting obviously even the venture capitalists and the bankers and other people in the industry, people that operate grants, and so I get to know all the kind of players of the game type thing. But one thing that struck me was that how few entrepreneurs get funding. It is actually less than 1% get funded.
It's less than 1%. And this is the bit I think that's really going to resonate with people here. And I think one of the things I'm keen for us to talk about in a moment is from that person who's got that initial idea through to those people who perhaps have been in business for a while and they want to take the business to the next level, perhaps for you to talk us through some of the things for them to kind of consider. So what sounds fascinating here is that you were having exposure to all these different people, from banks, one place that people go to angel investors, to these venture capitalists and all sorts of, so you were presumably learning all sorts and just meeting all sorts of entrepreneurs. And then was it there where the idea was born, based on the fact that, my goodness, only 1% of these people are actually getting financially backed?
That's right, and I thought, and it's not because often they don't have good ideas, it's that they don't know how to implement the ideas, and they don't know how to present the ideas, and they don't know how angel investors think. So a lot of them wasting their time, and maybe going, trying to convince the wrong players, for example, venture capitalists, when they should be trying to convince angels, or they should be trying to convince seed funds or an incubator somewhere. But so I think it's such a waste. So anyway, I put on a free seminar that is actually sponsored by the HSBC initially, and I think that first day I had about 20 or 30 attendees, and they seem to get a lot of value out of it. But I was basically trying to help them stand a much better chance of getting funding, or maybe the fact they didn't need to get funding, or they shouldn't be getting funding. So what happened was that a lot of people from that class, actually, or that group, was coming back to me with even better deals for the investors. And it could have been a couple of weeks later. In some cases, it was like a year later they come back to me with a much better deal than they originally started out with, and ended up getting funding. So I used to do those sort of events like every 6 months, almost comes as a side hobby kind of thing. And after time I used to do more and more of them because I saw the value that people were getting out of them. So I was refining at the same time, building in bits that were more practical and more important to the entrepreneurs there. And broadening my approach a little bit, so I had different seminars, different events with different things like how to write an executive summary, how to bootstrap and
bootstrapping. For those people who bootstrapping is that from what I understand about bootstrapping, that's how at the very initial stage you basically manage within what you've got in order to finance your business for that first stage. So it's about tightening your boots and getting on with it. Is that essentially
it's a bit beyond that. It's like creatively using the resources that you've got. It's my terminology for it. I mean, you find all kinds of different types, but it is. Everyone's got capability. Everyone's got resources. So even though they think I've got 5 quid in the bank account, what have I got? Well, there are things you can use. You can leverage all kinds of things. If you haven't got credibility, you can go out and borrow it from someone else. If you don't have a premises, you can go out and borrow from someone else, or do a deal with someone else. If you don't have a manufacturing unit, you can do a deal with them too. And marketing, you can do joint ventures with other people. There's loads of things you can do creatively beyond just going to go and get angel investment.
Right.
So that's what I kind of mean by bootstrapping. You just have to really think differently.
Right, and I think this is one thing that I'm really keen to zoom in on now, because I think that, you know, you kindly gave and shared some tips on funding, you know, really on funding for this book, Sole Trader, for people who are either in business or starting their business at the moment. So suddenly, once you've started out the funding game, you know, from it being a side hobby, there's a lot of interest, and now we're here at the British Library, you're the partner here, you see entrepreneurs all the time, and you run other workshops, and you see people one-to-one. For those people who are watching this now, and many of them will be really, really frustrated by the whole funding, you know, arena. It's really frustrating, they can't get funding and so on. Where should we really begin from this? Because there seems to be a notion, I guess, in the current realm of thinking that you have a business idea and that somebody should fund you for that idea. For me personally, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And for me, being an entrepreneur kind of means that somehow you're going to make it work. Whether that means, of course, persuading somebody to fund you, or whether it is that you do that creatively or bootstrapping or whatever terminology we use. So tell me, can you walk us through that you know, that I know there's a lot of stuff from when somebody first has that idea. Can you walk us through the key funding kind of points for somebody who's watching this and they're fascinated? Perhaps they're starting out, or perhaps they're a little bit further down the road and they're trying to get funding. Maybe they've been to the bank. Maybe that they're trying to find out who these angel investors or that. Can you kind of walk us through it?
Yeah. So like the classic kind of I'm going to get funding is that so you've got an idea, and you might think it's it's the next going to be the next Google or Facebook, wherever you think, but you think this is a fantastic idea, so you kind of believe in it. You think, right, what's the next step? And typically they think, well, maybe I should write a business plan. That's what everyone's telling me. That's what all the media tell you. And go to the business section in the bookshop, and there's like 20 books on how to write a business plan there. So maybe that's what I should be doing. So then you spend probably 6 months to 9 months writing a business plan. The thing is, once you've finished it, and you might be really proud of it, and it looks beautiful, and no one will read it, unfortunately. Very few people.
So this is interesting. So even those people professionally who might be investing, they're not necessarily going to read it.
No.
And this is really interesting to know.
Even my business plan, when I wrote my first business plan, I found out that hardly anyone read it.
Right.
Even the bank manager.
Well, this is interesting. I mean, one of the things I introduce in my book is sometimes for some people to write, especially if they don't need funding, a 2-page business plan. First is all their goals, the second bit is actually their actions. So, and presumably it's worth us also distilling here that there are going to be some people, particularly with businesses like if they're a consultant, if they're an individual or someone where that nobody's going to ever need finance, where they don't need a business plan at all, or they may not even need finance. Is it worth dealing with that side first? Presumably, do you see some people at your workshops where actually even exploring getting finance from somebody else is just not appropriate for them?
There's quite a lot of situations like that. And one thing to remember that ideas are literally to a penny. They are pretty much worthless unless you can patent them, and even then they might still be worthless. But so what is the value is what you do with that idea. What is your personal approach with that? What energy, what actions do you follow through with that idea? So what do you build? What risks do you reduce by putting it out into the world? And lots of people seem to like it and use it and pay for it. That's when investors get interested. Whereas a lot of people, they write that business plan about this idea, and they're never going to get invested. I can tell most people they're not. So
once somebody's got the idea, and you talked a little bit about the business plan and that lengthy plan that may not be appropriate. So once somebody's got an idea, what should they be actually doing? Because it seems that they either got the idea and then very often they're waiting for somebody to kind of suddenly back them, or they've got the idea and they've done a little bit of work, maybe they've got the business plan and they are going to all sorts of places for people to back them, and then often they lose kind of heart. So can you kind of talk us through what some of those things that they really then need to be doing and thinking about from there on?
All right. So step-by-step approach would be like you get an idea. Yeah, you do write some kind of plan, but I'm not talking 6 months. I'm talking like a day. You might sit down and brainstorm it. there's a great thing called the business model canvas, and what it does is helps you put your idea on one page in a very visual format that you can chop and change, move around different approaches to the same idea. You can sit around and play with it, play with a business partner if you've got one, or even your wife or your husband, and you could play with the idea until you've got something that looks like it might work. Then what you do is you go out into the world and start talking to people. Ideally, you talk to the customers, the people that might actually buy the idea, and then say, is this the idea that you might buy? For example, if it's retail, a lot of people would think, well, surely I should only go to like a buyer when I've got the finished product in my hand. And I'd say no, try and speak to the buyer before you even start making it, because if you take it to the buyer, then you could say things like, look, this is how it's going to look. I've mocked it up. Okay, it's paper mache. It doesn't look too good, but this is kind of roughly the size it is. It's going to weigh about this much. The USP or the unique selling proposition is, and this is what makes it different from everything else that's on your shelf, is such and such. The packaging is going to look like that. It's going to cost $15.99. Is that the kind of thing that you would stock here?
And this is great. That is right. That's valuable.
That's valuable.
But some people are going to be watching this and thinking, well, Paul, I can understand that, but I'm afraid somebody's going to steal my idea.
Okay.
But presumably you're saying that actually, unless you do that, you're not going to actually have a product that you know is the kind of product that your customers are actually going to buy.
That's right, exactly, yeah. And
so you've got to take that in a way that risk can be measured about who it is that you go and speak to.
That's right. I mean, you can't obviously be completely stupid, as in you go and approach all your competitors, potential competitors with the same idea, thinking, is this the kind of thing you'd like to partner with me on? You don't do that kind of thing, but you've got to get the idea out. You can't be too precious with it, because remember, ideas really are too
pennies. So you've done that, you've got some feedback, they're saying modify it. So once you've done that bit of the bits, you've done the board bit, you think, or you've thrown the idea around, you've got the one page or the focus, then you've gone out and you've got that feedback. What then typically, and what would you then say the next steps there?
So what you're going to try and do is trying to reduce the risk in the investor's eyes, so what they call proof of concept. So by going to that buyer, and then the buyer says, I like the concept, but you need to make it smaller. The packaging's too big, it's going to take up too much shelf on a space. The price point's not quite right, and the branding needs changing. And you say, if I can fix all these things, would you then be interested in buying this kind of thing? And I say, yeah, or why not? Come back to me again when you've got it right. So then you've actually got some kind of early proof of concept. Then you can almost take that to investors and say, look, I've got a buyer interested. You could like enlarge it a bit, but you've got a buyer interested, and they say, if I get all these things sorted, then we've got to go. We've got our first order.
And this is what
that is more powerful than just writing a business plan.
It's very powerful. It's very, very powerful. And I think that one of the things, I think one of the things I talk about in the book is what I call the blindness of the visionary, of the entrepreneur. Sometimes we can be so focused on our idea that actually we think that, everyone's going to want it. But we're actually afraid to ask those potential customers, because I think deep down we're afraid that they are going to be saying something like, actually do this, tweak that, and so on. But what you're saying is gold dust, because then you actually do know that there's actually real interest in what it is that you're doing. So that sounds very, very, very. That sounds really, really, really powerful. And because I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is that once you know what you're about, what you're wanting to do, then it's really all about your customer. If you're having the conversation with your customer, your potential customer, be it business to business, some stockists or whatever, they're all in a way different types of customers. Then you know you're going to have a business. From that perspective, in terms of then any other key points then, so you then have this idea, there's interest in it, and then you are then looking at funding. Presumably there's a couple of routes here then, isn't it? You can see if you can, as you indicated before, when you talk about the bootstrapping and your own resources, you could see, actually, I've got this interest, could we fund this ourselves, friends, family, contacts, whoever, and so on, and just go down that path, or at least for a while. Or you could then approach some of these professionals. Tell us a little bit about, if somebody is, presumably it might be more straightforward getting the money, at least from the friends, family, there might be other considerations there. If they're going to go down the route of then approaching the angels and so on, just a couple of key points, because before we close, in terms of things for them to consider there, if you are, but because bear in mind you may have no experience of these people. I mean, presumably I recommend that, and I do recommend people come to your workshop, because when I came to launch your workshop, I just thought it was brilliant how you actually walked us through everything from what the banks want. Here are the banks, here's what the banks want. Here are angel investors, here's who they are. These are the kind of things that they want. Once you're looking at it through their eyes, it's completely, here's what venture capitalists, here's how they operate, this is what they're looking for. Because let's face it, I think that everybody is in a way selfish, and I mean that in a positive way. They're focused on what they're focused on. So once you understand the world through their eyes,
that's right, yeah.
it becomes easier. So are there any key fundamentals that you would say if somebody is then going to engage with people like angel investors? Any key things that you should definitely be doing once you've got this and you're then approaching, like, I'm looking for somebody to find it, be it the banks or the angels or what have you?
Yeah, the first fundamental is to work out who you're going to go to, what players are you going to go to, are you going to go angel? It might actually not be viable for angel. For example, one of the big things is that are you going to go for an exit? You're going to try and sell your business in 5 years' time, for example. Now it might be the case that you don't want to sell your business, that you just want to hand it down to a generation, or just sit on it, and make a nice living out of it. In which case, it would not be suitable for angel investors.
Wonderful. So this is priceless in itself. This is which you wouldn't know unless you do this. That actually, if you're just wanting to hang on to it for yourself, then that may not be of interest to angel investors. No. Tell us in a nutshell, why is that?
Because the only way they make money is through the exit.
Right.
As that. So they don't make money off dividends. They can't possibly get enough return.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you wouldn't really have dividends for the first few years anyway, because you'll be paying any profits you get back into the business.
Right.
So, so you won't get dividends for at least year 5 onwards, and then it's going to be so small, it's never going to pay back your original investment.
Right.
So for angel investors to get their money back, they've got to try and get into deals that can make potentially 10 times their money back. They're not going to get it through dividends. So the only way they're going to do that is if that company sells to another company at some point, or floats on the stock market. Everyone gets paid at some point.
Right. And you talked a bit before about the venture capitalists who have a very clear, might be up to 10-year strategy. With angel investors, is there a time frame there that they're going to want to be seeing that money back?
Yeah, typically it's about 5 years.
It's going to be about 5 years.
Yeah, with the VCs, venture capitalists, they typically want a 3 to 5 year turnaround. Often quite quick turnarounds, because they've got a 10-year fund.
Right.
So, like, for example, if they're 5 years into the fund, they've got to get some pretty quick turnarounds before they hit the end of the fund.
Got you.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, I know that we probably won't have time to touch on all of the kind of tips, but one of the things that I found really useful and that you highlight is that really do think a lot about when you are going, if you do find yourself going in front of these people to get people, nobody's necessarily going to want this really overly lengthy kind of plan. But one of the things that I found that really struck me about your workshop, which, as I say, that I highly recommend, was really beginning to think from their perspective, who do you have behind your business? Which is, again, one of the things that kind of limits the risk. So even though it might be just you, let's say just your business partner, perhaps if you've got other people who are providing expertise, to highlight that those are people who are behind your business, because that, again, is going to up your chances, presumably from that 1% that we're talking about, considerabably. Is that one of the fundamentals?
10 times plus at least. So if a lot of good deals I've seen that they kind of flounder for it's a year or so, not finding funds. They might have actually done some stuff beforehand. They might have actually made something happen and have quite a good plan to show or exec summary, but it's still not happening because they've got no creds on the team. Right. So there's nothing wrong with them, because they're just new. A lot of entrepreneurs don't.
So they're looking for who's been there, done that, who's got that expertise in that particular area.
So this is a classic case, bootstrap case. So if you don't have it, you can basically borrow it.
Yeah.
So if you don't have credibility yourselves in that industry, you go out and find some good non-exec directors.
Yeah. So that's where they're non-executive. So they are. Yeah. So tell us for people who don't know what technically a non-exec, because they'll often, I think this is one of the challenges, isn't it, with business? There's all sorts of language floated around that people don't. So for people who don't know, it's a non-executive director in that context.
So that's when you have like a limited company.
Yeah.
You structure the company with a limited company. Which can issue shares. Yeah. Now within that company, the people that work in it are technically known as directors, and the ones that work kind of on the fringe of it, as in on an advisory capacity or on the board, and therefore to help that company with compliance issues, could be legal compliances, but primarily strategy and contacts and helping them basically develop and grow a bit faster. They're classically called non-execs, not non-executive directors. So they don't work on a day-to-day, they don't look at the cornflakes, they actually are there from the bigger perspective, and they'll come to a board meeting perhaps once a month or something, and maybe there on email to give support or telephone during the month.
Got you. And presumably from what you're saying is that actually for the entrepreneurs going along this journey, actually if they don't have all the expertise, this in itself is a really important exercise to do.
Yes, yeah.
Because from all sorts of perspective, you're giving your business a better chance of succeeding anyway by bringing in that expertise. So, and if you're looking to gain investment, then that's going to be wise as well. I mean, I think what's really wonderful about speaking to you is that I could probably speak to you all day about this particular stuff. And in a way, I'm going to begin to wind this interview up so much so, partly because I'm actually very keen for everybody to come along to your workshop and actually learn, or for the one-to-ones that you do, which I'm a huge fan of, because you know that I'm of the school of feeling that for some reason so many people complicate business. They make it very, very complicated, or they shroud it in mystery, or I get a sense that sometimes the question is, does somebody genuinely want to help somebody else or not? It's a very key, for me, it's a very, very key question when it comes to business. And I think that, I mean, it was really interesting, just a bit of an aside, but I was at an event recently by one of the other partners of the British Library, and they're coming from a legal kind of perspective, and they were talking about helping people understand the intellectual property side, and they were saying actually, what they're basically indicating, they were saying that actually we property lawyers, we've got a responsibility for helping people to understand, and maybe perhaps getting a little bit more involved in this and this, in order that people actually genuinely understand. And one of the things I like about the work that you're doing is that by getting closer to the entrepreneurs and so on, you actually genuinely kind of help them. I just want to kind of ask before we close, what are the kind of things that you're up to now, what you're excited about? I mean, do you back particular ideas if they're really shrewd or whatever? And tell us a little bit about, as well as the workshops and so on, tell us a little bit about what the kind of stuff that you're up to at the moment. I know that you're writing a book, which I can't wait to read, no pressure.
Hopefully you won't be waiting too long.
So what else are you up to, and what are your ambitions from here on in?
Well, I do enjoy the working with British Library for one thing. I do the workshops, my regular workshop, which I'm about to do this afternoon, how to fund a startup.
Yeah, I better make sure you're not late for that.
It should be alright. Which is basically like a roadmap to getting funding. I go through 17 different approaches that you can get funding. The other ones, I've got specialist courses that I do kind of outside the British Library with other partners, writing exec summaries, about finding angels, about developing a deal so it's investor ready, all kinds of different courses like that. So on top of that, I've been doing more and more coaching as well, which I really enjoy, which I've only done in the last year or two.
Yeah, well, I think it'd be as a coach myself, I think a brilliant coach. So I think that thing about actually helping people through that process is very powerful, isn't it? It is really rewarding. I know that certainly when I work with business or with entrepreneurs, especially when they've got the kind of fire and the kind of passion and so on. And that's really amazing. Yeah, but sorry,
yeah. So I enjoyed traveling a bit further with on the entrepreneurial journey. I do quick one-offs, but sometimes it leaves me. And I meet them again a few months later, and they've kind of fallen in a big hole somewhere, and making some huge mistakes. And I think, hey, this totally could have been avoided. But or they just lose their momentum, and that's just the biggest classic mistake. Or they have some barriers that just they don't see themselves as entrepreneurs or something. But everyone's an entrepreneur really, and it doesn't take much to keep.
And is that why the kind of coaching bit has emerged, so that you're able to spot them?
And then I can stay with them a little bit longer, even if it's a couple of hours a month. And so I enjoy that. I really enjoy that a lot. So I've been doing a lot more of that, apart from writing the book and everything. I'm involved in a few other projects, involved with a few other incubators like Westminster Hub. On their special programme, they're quite relatively new in Innovation Warehouse.
And these are spaces that, for those people who don't know about it, and that, as it sounds, really just to help as a baby incubator is to really help and provide that space and that support until they go off into the world.
Yeah.
And all sorts of different types of support depending on the incubator.
Ecosystem for early stage businesses. So I'm doing that as well, and no, I don't invest in. I'm not an active angel investor, so don't send any business plans to me. Although I do help other people. I do help people obviously get angel investment. As I used to run an angel network, so I used to be doing introductions all the time. But now I don't do that as such. Now I try and teach people, because that takes up an enormous amount of time trying to match two people together
help people
and get the deal done. So now I basically teach people how to get funding. Literally, if you do these steps, then and then the idea is obviously sound to start with. Then there's a very good chance that you will get funding. And if you go about it in the right way, this is what you need to do basically. So I try and give that to people that they can use again and again and again, whatever business they go into.
Well, that's priceless, and I just think you've summed that up. And I just want to thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for contributing the tips that you have to Sole Trader. Thank you very much, because I think we're both passionate about helping those kind of business people on that journey to be themselves and to do what they want to do in the world. I just want to ask, and with a final question, can you tell when somebody walks in the room, somebody who's really going to succeed in business or not, or at least survive in business? Because I think that I can. And what is more important? Is it having a strong business, or is it really the right kind of person? Tell us, just what really makes a good business and a really good entrepreneur on that perspective. I'm just curious on your take on that.
Yeah, that is a really good question. That's really good. No, it's true though. I think I'm like you. I often think I can tell within about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, whether they stand a good chance or not.
Yeah. And what's that? Is that personality drive, commitment?
It's not nothing to do with the idea as such. Although if they bring up a completely mad idea, then and suddenly I think I'd start doubting my opinion. But no, typically though, it is something to do with maybe their focus and momentum. You know they're going to follow through, and they're going to make mistakes, but they know they're going to learn from the mistakes. They kind of got that kind of look in their eye that says, right, I'm going to trip up a few times, but I'm going to get back up. I'm going to learn each time. I'm going to get there, and I don't care what, but not in a stupid way. Not like I have a kind of self-help book type, like I'm going to become a billionaire by within 3 years, kind of. But more kind of like, I really want to do this, I'm going to find a way to do it. You can see that passion is natural, it's in them, and they're going to find a way. I've had some coaching clients like that, that every time I'm with them they suck me dry, and then they use everything I tell them, come back for more, and every time they're just going at an astonishing rate, and I've got, they would have done it without me, but hopefully I helped them get there slightly quicker.
Wonderful, and I think that's really a good point to kind of wrap it up, because I do think I do see that a lot in people, and you can just see that their drive or their energy or their commitment, and sometimes, as you indicate there, it doesn't